standing out there alone. I yearn, yeah, and it's real to me. There must be someone who's feeling for me. Things look so bad everywhere in this whole world. What is fair? We walk the line and try to see, falling behind, and what could be. Oh, bring me a higher love, my Lord. Bring me a higher love. Oh, bring me a higher love, my Lord. It's that higher love I keep thinking of. Bring me higher love. Bring me higher love. Bring me higher love. Bring me a higher love. Oh, bring me love. We need a higher love. Bring me, yeah, a higher love. I keep thinking of. Bring me higher love.
All right, good evening. Welcome. Damn. I know when the last time I streamed was. A couple of weeks. But yeah, things feeling good. Been too long? Yeah, man. Agreed. What's the name of the last song? Higher Love by Kygo. Obviously remix. Yeah, it has been a while. Yeah, shit's been busy. I've been bull posting, you know. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of time. To craft and to get the tone just right, you know. And no, Barrett, we're not going to start off with ETH. We're going to start off with the king for now, BTC. So I think what we've got here, obviously, you know, I don't need to go through the current conditions. I think that they're relatively self-explanatory, and I think that you may not have heard my voice talking about them for a couple of weeks, but I'm sure that you see my Twitter content talking about price action, and I've just been a big believer in this price action. The biggest change for me came at 60,000. That was a huge turnaround for me on kind of like a personal level in terms of bias and confidence in the position, and then basically I've just been blind bull posting ever since that level because it just represented such a great opportunity to basically take a stab that BTC could attempt to break out of this 7-month consolidation. And I still believe that that will be the case, you know, kind of at a more significant level than we're currently doing. But you know, my kind of bullish beliefs have been unwavering over the course of October, given that the price action has just been up and to the right. It's been a very simple process from the BTC side. Alts have been a little bit more difficult. Now, I haven't paid a huge amount of attention to alts. I've been very, very focused on the BTC side of things. I've had a very good read on BTC, and I felt as though kind of my priority has been in making sure that that position is as well crafted and bulky as I want it to be. And, you know, this market looks great. We'll start with the higher time frames and we'll work our way through. So higher time frame weekly, we'll start with here. One of the nicest things about this, aside from the fact that we're breaking out the 7-month consolidation patch, is the fact that the RSI is supporting all of the movement that we've got now. not only do we have the RSI supporting that, we've got the awesome oscillator underneath as well. So we've got this area here with a bearish crossover, absolutely fine. And then hopefully now this bullish push. And then we see a nice result from that. Now, all of the other bullish pushes on BTC have been very, very strong. This one here back in 2021 delivered a significant upside. We had one again here in 2023, which obviously was the start of this run here before we really kicked in October. And then obviously October was the start of the next one. So typically speaking, just from a simple TA perspective, we have very strong kind of bullish momentum when the AO crosses on the weekly. It tends to yield pretty good results. And obviously from here, the majority of people will be looking towards that 6-figure target for BTC. I think it's going to go probably 10-15% higher than that. Certainly in terms of kind of the shorter term, kind of line of thinking through here. So the weekly sets up very, very nicely. Very clear kind of breakthrough here. However you're going to map it, whether or not you want to start using flat levels, diagonals, channel, however you're drawing the 7-month consolidation. It would appear at this point in time, and I'll be very careful with what I say, it would appear at this point in time as though that consolidation is breaking to the upside. Then as soon as we start to go down into kind of the lower end of the higher time frames, like the 3-day, 3-day still has a ton of room to the upside. The 3-day break would be important, about 4 hours until that close. Yeah, I see you saying the same manners here. So, yeah, exactly the same thought process as me through here. I think the 3-day is an important one just to get that stick above here. It would be the best 3-day close that we'd seen on BTC. And, would put us into then a very solid position. I think lower time frame now, what we want to see is 71.5K hold. So if we do trade back into that zone, I'd like to see that hold on a lower time frame perspective. And then the continuation based on the higher time frame. But this 3-day picture here has a ton of room to run still. This has still got a load of upside room, as does the AO. And then when we get to the daily, I was trying to find the tweet about this today because I'm sure that I did tweet about it, but I couldn't find it. So we're looking at kind of like the way that BTC has previously reacted around the 67 level on the RSI, and then also the same on the AO through here. So we can see that throughout these 7 months, we've basically been capped at this point every single time. You can see here, the RSI, we kind of stall around here. Right, we start to stall. Now, again, there was another very simple trigger in here of this time being different to the prior occasions. Okay, so this one that we had here on the daily, we can see the RSI stretched to the best position that it's been over the last 7 months. And then what we did was we got that little correction. We got that sort of 4 or 5 days in here of chopping back and forth and holding 66,000. And now we're rotating again. And this is going to be another push on the RSI to a greater height. And the first time that we're going to start to visit this extreme in a significant length of time. Right, the last time that we did this was back in February 2024. So it's been a long time since BTC has reached the extreme over here on the daily time frame. So again, a very good sign. We want to be in the extreme. Little reminder for you, being in the overbought region of RSI is a very good thing. It's not a bad thing. It should never be seen as a negative for an uptrending market. It's a really positive sign, and we want the RSI to be in there. The reason that we want RSI to be in there is because once RSI gets into that zone, as you can see through here, right, it tends to stay in that zone. So this area here, when we get into overbought here, we enter overbought here, and we stay in overbought all the way through here for a 65% move. So we want to be in overbought conditions. That shows the strength of the market. It shows the momentum that the bulls have, and this is where we want BTC to be. So when we got this last time, we had that 65% unrelenting move to the upside, keeps people frozen out, stops the easy entries, gives 2 days of correction, and then carries on. So again, once we get into this region, we tend to be very productive once we're up there. So we want to see BTC make that push, get there, especially with the close above this 71.5. Everything good. Okay. Very good situation to be in. Lower time frame, something that I've been tweeting about a little bit earlier today is that all markets get more volatile when they reach all-time high levels. Okay, when they're approaching former highs, all-time highs, whatever it might be, all markets get more volatile. There is far more action on the lower time frames. There's a whole range of reasons for that, but obviously there's a lot of people doing business around those levels, and so we tend to see a lot more reaction in terms of the price. So when you start to see things like a big downswing in BTC on the 5-minute or the 15-minute, it doesn't mean that the top's in. Okay, it just means that this is now a more reactionary area for us on BTC. Right, we're right up against that all-time high. This is going to be a reactionary area for us. Even if we push back up to, you know, and clear the all-time high here, again, I would expect us to be back and forth around this number. It is a very volatile area for price to be interacting with. So don't start forming or flipping your bias based on the fact that the 5-minute candles are doing something. You know, keep firmly in your head that this is 7 months of consolidation coming to an end, fingers crossed, and that lower time frame action is not really that important to us, aside from giving us a good indication of when we shouldn't be operating there from a trading perspective. Right, to be now trying to trade the 5-minute on BTC is very challenging. Other markets you can play a little bit easier through these levels, but trying to do BTC through here is a little bit more challenging, just because, again, of the reactions that we're going to be getting. Shouldn't alts be pushing a bit more with BTC here? No, I don't think so. Like, BTC quite clearly has the attention. BTC has the strength. We've seen the BTC dominance chart. You know, BTC is quite clearly the market favorite right now. We've seen this condition before. You know, we're not kind of oblivious to this condition. We've seen it before where BTC just takes the reins and it runs, but the rest of the market does play catch up. And we know that to be the case, which is why I think there's such a good opportunity on the alt side. If BTC rejected hard, wouldn't alts nuke bad? Yeah, but like, I think again, it's understanding, like, what are your aims here? Okay, like if you're looking at trading this market, right, nuking bad, then sure, it's going to stop you out of open trade positions because, yeah, alts are going to get hit. If you're holding spot, or if you're looking to be a buyer, that's probably fine. And then you've got the other side of it, which is like the classic bull market incorrect psychology, which is constantly wondering if something is going to be rejected, which is like the wrong way to be thinking about it. So we're not necessarily concerned about BTC rejecting hard, right? Because that's like a made up scenario, right? So yes, like in your scenario here of BTC rejecting hard, but then we've got to consider what are the factors for that? What are the possibilities of that? What are the early signs of that? And realistically, you know, from where we are right now, I'm not sure why there would be a hard rejection. It's all about your own position management through areas like that. But I wouldn't start buying into a thought process about, you know, BTC rejecting hard. Are you fully positioned in BTC? Yeah. So I positioned at 60,000 and I bought again at 67.1. Because I was basically, I was just kind of figured that 66 was it. It was just the hold. So just bought more spot there. So this is, I'm in a leverage position spot from 60k. Bought more again at 67.1. And I'll probably buy more again on maybe the 3-day close just because it's clean enough to be able to action it on that. So I'll probably also try and, you know, take something on there. I think the 3-day is probably clean enough to be able to start thinking about what that looks like. It's set up so well. Yeah, earnings just came out. Not great. Yeah, so AMD was down after hours. So yeah. Got lucky on INQ. Went early on the train this time. Yeah, nice. Good job. Yeah. I think that's about, I think my spot's like, I don't know, 80% up, something like that. Yeah, do you remember asking me how to short guy on Twitter? Yeah. He's the one that like just like came back this time around, like tried doing the same shit. Just like hops into like all the larger accounts replies from anybody that's bullish and starts talking about how everything's going to go down, and it just, it just doesn't. And look, everybody has a different view on the market. Everybody has a different thought process. I think that I've been quite amazed by the fact that more people haven't been more bullish about this, because the simplicity of what's been taking place on BTC is so obvious. And I really don't get why more people didn't spot that, or why people have decided now is the time to stand in the way of it. I guess that's also a thing. It's like, yeah, sure, we've seen these lower high rejections for a good length of time, right? We've seen it for like 7 months. But when the market started printing the higher high on the 3-day and changed that structure, like, you've got to be able to see that and change and adapt with it. And I just don't get how, from such a simple TA perspective, so many people are caught out by this. Just don't get it. Yeah, wanting to be smarter than everybody else. Yeah, I mean, it's a classic. Like, you saw Cole do it, right? Where, you just take on the biggest bear personality, because it's counter logic, and it's also counter what people want to see. And so it naturally, it's like the rage bait stuff, it links itself to that, and it just gives people an opportunity to get pissed off, and all engagement is good engagement. So yeah, that's part of it. Like, Ask Me How to Short is like a classic example of that. And like Cole, they're just like, they play a character at a particular moment where emotions are high anyway. And, basically there's no downside-ish to them, apart from obviously what happened with Cole overall. You just get like blown out as a main character, and that's it. I feel most people are long. Yeah, I think there's a lot of I think there's a lot of people who are posting bullishly. I don't think there's a lot of people who are long. I bet you if you actually did, a true and honest survey of who had an open BTC position, I bet you it would be very few in terms of that overall percentage of people. I bet you far more exposure is on the alt and the meme coin side of things. Far more. Yeah, really, I think so, because I think BTC surprised people. You have to remember as well that when BTC started to move was basically during the peak of like the Murad era, which is when meme coins were just dominating discussions. Meme coins were, kind of given the big valuations. Everybody was looking at trading memes. There were meme coin listings appearing on far more exchanges. That became kind of, that stole the show in terms of the mind share. That's when BTC started moving. BTC's up what, 30% in 21 days? A little bit longer. And I don't think a lot of people were ready for that scenario. I think a lot of people have exposure elsewhere. And I think that's also why 63K was very important, because I think it was only when BTC started pushing aggressively that people were like, oh shit, BTC's moving. And then suddenly everybody was like, oh, we're going to get 63K. I'll bid 63. I'll bid 63. And you ain't getting 63. Yeah, if you can actually trade memes, though, you should be up enough X's that a 20% BTC move doesn't give you FOMO. Well, a 20% BTC move shouldn't give you FOMO anyway. You know, like I always say, Andy, you know, look at the comparison with MicroStrategy. Like, how many people that own BTC worry about MicroStrategy? It's outperformed you by a multiple of 6. Right? It's 6x up on BTC. It's giving you 6x the returns that owning BTC has over the same time period from October. And, like, no one FOMOs about that. So, you know, like, FOMO's all relative. You shouldn't care about any other market because there's opportunity everywhere. Right? But I get the point you're making. Can you look at MSTR? Yeah. I mean, it's a monster. 43% up on the breakout. It's traded as high as 50% higher than the weekly from the weekly breakout. And this is BTC. Like, BTC's here. It's right here. This is where we are. We're at 180. And it's wild that this shit broke out 3 weeks ago. Like, it's the most obvious fucking signal you've ever seen. This was very strong in the face of BTC not being anywhere near the range highs. And because this is still a better institutional investment vehicle than some of the BTC ETFs, which aren't accessible still. And again, you can just take it from like the October. Like October 23 is just like, that's the basis. This is the start of everything. Right? And we're up 660%. Yeah, I think all of this list is going to go nutty. All of this list will go nutty. Like, all of this shit looks in such a good position to move higher. There's a huge opportunity on the crypto stock side of things. You got to remember as well that this is like a more liquid version of alts for larger players. So you just buy BTC miners instead. And also, you know, you can add into that the kind of the election side of things, that if Trump wins, then I think it's a positive overall for the crypto industry. I think it's a positive for the crypto industry based in the US. And I think that those markets will do well. Like, Coinbase is going to do very well under Trump because he's going to sack Gensler. So he's just going to walk in and just, Gensler's gone. So Coinbase is going to have a field day. I don't want to start speculating on election stuff, but, you know, that's one of the outcomes that we're going to have there. Can you chart HUT and HIVE? They're both very, very good, man. Like, I don't need to go through them, but they're both in very strong positions. I think HIVE is the one that's breaking out the weekly trend line. But both in very good positions. Yeah, CLSK. CLSK has got a problem with the prior range. But if it gets past there, then all good. All right, let's take a quick look at ETH and see how things are shaping up there. Because this is a relatively interesting one as well. Give me one sec. Yeah, Mara's still a good buy as well. So ETH. what we've got through here is we've got obviously a significantly underperforming market where people have tried to time the bottom on multiple occasions, and that is a very huge body count on what that looks like for failure. But this is in a decent spot. Now, the other day, it was in a decent spot from a risk-reward perspective. We speak about this quite often where we talk about basically the chance you have to take because the market makes the odds so attractive to basically attempt the trade. And what you had was that down here on ETH, where you've got this really good structure. You can just take this as like simple structure. And so what you've got is just this nice little uptrend structure here on the daily, where we're making the higher lows, we're doing the higher highs through this local region here, and everything's okay. And so when we get down to this level and, you know, kind of the psychology's in the pits again and ETH looks so fucking bad, the risk reward is actually at its greatest because it provides you with that opportunity against the low here to be able to take the trade and then shoot for the high. Overall, the higher time frame for this market still looks pretty shitty, to be honest with you. Okay, the only reason that I see this doing well is because BTC is going to break into price discovery. And then therefore it's going to drag this up with it, hopefully. But it looks pretty poor overall. It's not like an attractive chart when you start to get towards, you know, kind of this higher time frame perspective. And the risk reward, like I said, on the daily makes it worth it. Now, what you've got obviously here is you've got the big resistance level at 2780. And this is a problem at the moment for ETH. If we get through 27 in 2780, then the next area basically is just right above it here at 2900. So then you're dealing with this area. So what you've got is a break straight into resistance. Now, the ideal scenario for ETH obviously is to maintain the structure through here. It's to then utilize the fact that we have that nice uptrending structure here to push into a fresh high and break the resistance. Trade between here for a while, right? And then look at making the move. That's what you'd like to see from ETH. I don't know what's going to happen with this market. Right? I don't know what the future holds for ETH, because I think that Sol's in a significantly better spot, is far better regarded by the crypto community right now. I don't know what the future actually holds for this market, but from a technical perspective, I think that's what you're looking at. I think as long as BTC holds relatively steady around where it is now, I think that Sol should be trading into 2788. I think based on the structure, it should break 2788. I think it rejects 2900. I think ETH chops around in a 5-7% range through those two levels, and then hopefully builds some sort of attack for breaking through 3K. ETH does not care about supply or order blocks when it runs. Brother, I don't think many of you were born the last time ETH ran. So, this shit's so good. We'll cover this as well. This is the lower time frame price action that we need to be aware of, and that we've got kind of hints of that we've seen developing so far, but we'll cover that in a second. Higher time frame Sol, very positive position overall. Again, weekly RSI starting to curl around. We've had the negative crossover here now, so we're back on the bullish side. Hopefully this now results in the clear breakthrough, and I think that once Sol goes, it will be very aggressive in its upside move again. You know, I think it's heading into, you know, 250 plus very, very comfortably and very quickly. Lower time frames actually, you know, still doing a decent job here. We actually had a pretty aggro correction on Sol already down here for the 12%, and a really good recovery. This basically, once it hit that low, it just did the classic bull market grind back up. You can see here. it's just this relatively controlled ascent back up, and it just undoes everything. And it's kind of infuriating for bears because, you know, bears are saying, well, this is now the macro top. That's it for Sol. It's done. And because I've seen this 12% correction here, then that confirms my beliefs. And then what it does is it just slowly just inches all the way back up until it completely undoes everything and then makes a fresh high. So Sol in a very good position, I think, through here as well. Lower time frame, fine. Again, just playing into what BTC is doing. A lot of these markets are actually making pretty good lower time frame corrections here. 4% here already. Some bigger corrections elsewhere on the alt side of things. Just needs that clearance of the last weekly high here around 185. I think once it gets the 185 clearance, then this will start to accelerate. The only concern you might have on Sol, I think that this level here is probably good. So if we weave in some lower time frame thought process, I think 4 hour, you want to stay above this level. I think it looks fair to think that it will probably do that as well. So you want it to stick above 177. You don't want to start getting any like dodgy divergences here on the 12 hour. You want to just be able to keep this momentum and this acceleration through the upside. If we get a few chill days on BTC now, we might get that. Yeah, I still got my bag, man. Like I said, this was the only bag that I held through everything. I held this up, down, sideways, everywhere. Why is no one talking about BNB though? Well, I mean, there's loads of markets that look good, you know, like overall. Like BNB's got a clear breakout point around 610. Looks as though it could easily get through that zone. So yeah, I think that BNB's in a really good position. I think that's like well spotted. Higher time frame looks like a very clear kind of build up underneath this level here. And it's been a historically significant level for us as well. If we get rid of the former divergence play through here, and we just like box this 610 level off here, like you can see it's been like a pain in the dick for BNB for a long time. Resistance all the way through here, finally got the breakout. That put in the top with the breakout, and then that was it. You got the big correction on the back of that. Now 45%. And we're back right up against that 610 level. And in the current conditions, you would think that this is going to break through that for sure. Weekly looks in a really good position. The monthly can absolutely move through the top side here. You've got 625 for the former monthly highs as well. Yeah, it's in a really good position, man. But again, I think there's a lot of things that are in very good positions. Like another market that nobody talks about is Tron. Like nobody talks about Tron, and Tron looks like that. Like, Tron literally has just been up only for 2 years. It's been up only for 2 years and no one talks about it. Like nobody has long exposure here, and it's one of the best looking crypto charts. Where's the rest of this chart? Don't worry, it's created here. This is the relaunch. I'm long Tron, good man. Because Justin will dump on everyone soon. Yeah, people have been saying that shit the whole time, man. Yeah, POPCAT looks insane. Broke all-time high twice today. Yeah, I mean, like, that one's probably the most self-explanatory chart out there, right? Ain't much to say about a chart breaking all-time highs twice in a day. Good coin. Good tech. Nobody congratulated Justin Sun on becoming Prime Minister. True. Very disrespectful, actually. POPCAT is the Doge trade of this cycle. What if Doge is the Doge trade? Doge's been very strong. You can tell the mood's changed because people are using phrases like accumulation now instead of distribution. So people are like, have we finished accumulation here? Instead of like, 6 weeks ago, it would have been, is this distribution coming to an end? Yeah, massive move on Tensor today. Yeah. Have you traded GOAT at all? Yeah, a little. I did actually the day, what was it? Last week. Just after the largest sell-off, I think it went down to like 15 cents or so, and I caught it back at like 30. And I traded up like 25% and then closed the position because I was getting tattooed. And then when I like logged back on, it was like 63 cents or some bullshit. And I was like, oh, you fuck. Classic being happy with a 20% meme coin move before it rips for a 2x. People were calling this distribution for the longest time on BTC. What happened to Matic? Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. I think Matic's cooked. I think it's done, right? No, I don't think I've had a request to talk about Matic. I can't even remember when. When the hell was the last time someone asked for a Matic chart? Yeah, it's poll now. Planning to change any positioning around the election? No. Not a single thing. I think the election is the biggest meme that's been spun to you since September being red. I think it's a nonsense perpetuated story on Twitter. Do you think the election might be a sell the news event? Nope. I said on Twitter that it just goes up. Price is just going to go up. I know what we're worried about. I know what we're worried about the election for. But the market's forward looking anyway. So, as far as I'm concerned, the market should be forward looking. Should essentially know the outcome already. What happens if the market is already pricing in the Trump victory? What if that's what's going on with the market already? So then, like, you know, because that's been one of the classic memes is, you know, staying sidelined until after the elections. Like, why? You just spun it to yourself that the elections will become some volatile event. What happens if it's not? What happens if it's all straightforward? What happens if the market already knows that? Like, why do people start kind of creating the narrative around an event? I think it's just a way of, it's either a way of not being able to action trades and therefore giving justification for doing so, or it's just to have something to talk about. Take care, Barrett. Orange. Now I know that you typed the truth, so I'm gonna take it that this is a truthful comment. So I'll read it. Fuck. I'm not reading it. What the fuck is that? I got halfway through and I was like, what the fuck is this? I literally, the word shoplifting just came straight out. And I was like, what? I'm nervous about a trade I have open from 15% lower. Best way to approach to catch maximum upside. What are you nervous about? What are you nervous about? Round tripping? All right, so from like where we are right now, I think that, yeah, 15% is probably right around kind of the uncomfy zone. I think from an alt perspective, I wouldn't rule out 10, 15% in terms of, you know, lower from here. And the reason that I say that is back to that Sol chart that I was looking at before that we didn't quite dive into on the hourly, but over here. Okay, you've got all of this shit here. Like, this is really where the fuck am I? July? Here. Like, because this really gives you like a good idea of what's kind of going to go on here, I think, during this price action. Okay, Sol does a 2x over the course of 2 weeks through here. But during that 2x, it goes down around 10%, 5 separate occasions. All right, so like it still does these 10% corrections, although it recovers from them. That's what it does 5 separate times during this run-up. And you have to be able to survive these in order to benefit from this. So when you're talking about like 15%, yeah, I think 15% is still possible on the downside. Again, depends on what alt you're looking at. If you look at something like WIF today, I think like WIF is showing like a pretty decent like downside move from the high here, 270s. Like that's already hit like a 6%er just in kind of a couple of hours. You just got to make sure that your positions are managed relatively well, which is the reason that you don't want to have a ton of positions open, because you need to be able to manage them effectively. 15%, I think you'll probably be all right. Don't take my word for it. You got to act by yourself. But that is kind of, if anybody's up at that sort of figure, 10, 15%, I think you either need to be very comfortable in the fact that you could go back to a neutral PNL. And what does that look like for you? If you don't want to be in that situation, you need to consider taking profit. because we know that these alt markets have the ability to put in those sort of corrections. And with BTC and the volatility around all-time highs, the impact on alts is greater, so we could see some of those moves. I sold because Donald sold. I had a 64k entry. Damn, man. You just never base your shit on what people on Twitter are doing. Like, Donald said that, like, I'm pretty sure Donald said that he basically was just closing because he didn't want to hold into the election. He was going to be doing other shit, and that's it. I didn't think it was, like, because he was bearish. I think it was just because... $23% profit. Yeah, that's a pretty decent place to be. All right, we'll do another 10 minutes or so. Yeah, I'm out of my tier bag, man. Fuck. So I had a bunch of trades in prior to the move to 60k. So when we traded up on BTC, I was long a bunch of things, took some profit along the way, and then once we got the higher time frame correction back down to 60k, I basically came out of all trade positions and went purely into spot positions, right, just to set up for the future. With up-only season coming, do you have any top or sell signals to keep profits safe? Just sell on the way up, man. It's the best thing to do. Just sell on the way up. Don't start putting like figures that you'll sell at in your head, because that will change all the time. Sell pieces on the way up, and you'll kind of usually finish cycles and be relatively happy with how you performed when you do that. So that's usually the best way to perform things. I got to update this watch list as well. Got to pull everything across. For a non-pro trader, would you say it's a good time to be spot on high-quality alts? Yeah, I mean, I'll let you define what's a high-quality alt. And then just be patient and ride the uptrend for the coming months. Yeah, I mean, like, when you look at the higher time frame for a lot of these alts, they're in a position of, you know, being pretty decent. Like, obviously, I've just been hovering on the whiff chart here, but this is in a really good position as well. The higher time frames are basically at the 50 level. You know, we looked at BNB as well before, but there's a lot of alt markets that are like this, rotating away from the 50, bouncing off the daily 50 level, done the negative crossover on the AO, now looking for the positive flip. 3 days in very positive positions. I think that, you know, you can position into alts when you've got charts that look like this, and then it's just about alt selection. I think it's about not spreading yourself too thin, having conviction in whatever, you know, whether or not it's a meme you believe in the most, whether or not it's a technical setup you believe in the most, however you're going to grade the quality of whatever you're going to, you know, invest in. I think it's just about having exposure to some of these markets, you know, and again, making sure that you're not spreading yourself super thin so everything is meaningless. Haven, man. Haven, Haven, Haven. Are you a believer in ETH taking spotlight soonish and stops bleeding against BTC and other alts? I don't know, man. I don't know. Like I said, I think, you know, lots of people have attempted that play. And I'm long on ETH now. I don't know what that's going to net me, if anything. But yeah, I mean, you would suspect that ETH does move, but then how long have we been saying that for? You know, there is a world out there in which ETH is just not the attractive trade anymore, and just Sol takes the driving seat. Like, there is a world in which that's the case. There is a world in which ETH simply loses appeal. However outrageous that would have seemed 12, 18 months ago. But I think, you know, that should be an actual consideration. Yeah, Mew is another one. Yeah, Mew is another one that's kind of doing that. I mean, like, Mew is very much still alive. But Mew is another one that's just doing the nice kind of, like, correction up here on the higher time frames. Significantly more extended than most other markets, though. Stuff like this as well. Like, JTO hasn't even had the crossover yet in the divergence play down here. There's some really good shit out there, honestly. Happy with Tesla progress so far? Yeah, I think so. I think it's fine after, you know, earnings was the real shot, and then that's it. Your biggest spot win this year, as in, like, what I think will be my biggest spot win? Tempted to sell 50% of my ETH bag for Sol. Like, again, that's like a horror question. That's like a horror question because I don't know how I answer that at this point in time. I think if you would have asked me, and I'll look at Render quickly now, but I think if you would have asked me here, then yeah, sure, it makes sense because this is just pushing for that breakout. When you ask when ETH is in the position it's in now, a week later, I think that's a different scenario. Do I think that Sol outperforms ETH still? Yes. Do I think that this is the switching point? Maybe not. Again, depends on like your horizons and what that looks like, but all right, Render, then we'll wrap up. Yeah, this is pretty good. You know, like, you've basically got the higher time frame and the lower time frame that are matching up quite nicely here. And, you know, we can just do the higher time frame analysis. We don't really need to go into, like, the weekly and the 3-day. Probably also because that would be slightly more concerning. But we can go from here. So I think naturally what you would want to do through this region is you'd want to do something like this. You'd want to draw this under here. You'd want to look at this as a breakdown and maybe this as a retest. I think actually the better way of looking at this is probably like this. And take like these lows here maybe, or even just this one here. And so what you've seen is that render has now moved to the downside and taken out, you know, essentially all of the price action from over a month in this move here. Now, what you can see here as well in the lower time frames is, you know, something that's like very, very similar in terms of what's happening here. So you can see that again, lower time frame, we come and we clip these lows here. This is like one of the classic bull market correction pieces. So we move down, we take out the lows from the little build up, the little grind, and then we continue to the upside. And I would hope that render would be doing the same on a daily. Now, in order to determine whether or not that would be correct or not, I think we could probably look at the level that it's retesting now. I think that getting daily closes back above this kind of 510 region is probably a really good sign that actually this was more of a flush out versus a full-on breakdown, and that the market conditions could help render through here. Now, of course, there is an outcome where that original logic is just correct, and this is just weakness, and this just continues to the downside. But I think in order to determine that, we'd be able to still use this 510 level. We should be seeing a reclaim of this. You know, I'd be tempted to wait until we see some bullish price action above here in order to confirm the fact that this is, you know, willing to try and make a move to the upside. The weekly's in a fine position ish. The monthly is again fine. You've had the big correction on this. The monthly's in a fine position with the RSI back down at the 50 level. If the narrative kicks in again, maybe this will do well. Lower time frame, you can probably even start to box this off even tighter. This is a little bit like BNB. We know that this level here, trading above 508, has been a problem for render on the lower time frame. So if it starts to get back above that, we can take that higher time frame logic into the lower time frames. We can think about this as the sweep against this build up, and that actually the price is going to do this. And this logic here, what I'm describing here, is very important. It's very important for bull markets, and it's very important for anybody that's looking at getting involved in the action on the lower time frames. There's a very good example of whiff, and I'll leave you with this piece of alpha, and then we'll wrap up there. So what you see here on whiff is, and I don't know whether it's going to play out or not, but what you see on whiff is a very clean trend through here. Okay, and I've got a video, I think, of this already. You get a very clean trend through here. There's not a lot of pullbacks. There's not a lot of chopping. There's not a lot of consolidation. It's just up, up, up. Okay. And then what happens here is you notice even just by eyeballing these two areas, there's a lot more red candles in here. Okay. There's a lot more back and forth through this region. So although we're still moving to the upside, there's a lot more back and forth in this. Now, typically what tends to happen when we're on the lower time frames is we start to attack where this change happened. From clean uptrend into choppy uptrend, we tend to attack the origin of the lows. Now, this can make for some good scalp entries, depending on the actual level of the pullback. This can also make for some very good swing entries. So this is something to keep an eye on when we're getting these corrections in very strong markets. And you can also take this logic here about uptrend chop into higher time frames as well. So you can take this logic into the higher time frames as well. So if you see this developing on a 4 hour, it's the same process that's basically unfolding. Okay, and that's why when we did that render comparison then, and we're looking at whether or not, you know, we've seen it here, you know, similar sort of structure. You get very clean uptrend here. You still get uptrend here, but once again, note the presence of all these red candles that we get in here, and we chop a lot more back and forth. And then what happens? The market comes down, takes out the origin low here, and then gets a very strong recovery. Right? This is a part and parcel of uptrending markets. And the reason being is it's a very common stop loss place. And it's another reason that it's so effective is because something like WIF, the majority of participants miss this because it happens too quickly. And then they start buying the dips here. So these moves typically take out those people or round trip those people and force them into closing. So it's usually because market misses these moves, gets involved later on, this takes them out, and then hopefully continuation. Again, caveat, I don't know what's going to happen. All right. Let's wrap up there. Does Kamala winning mean a bearish outcome for crypto? I don't think so. I think that the crypto discussion is far too big for just a single presidential candidate. I don't think one side is just going to completely, try and eradicate crypto from the existence of the US just because they're in. Sure, it might mean like the market doesn't like it in the shorter term, but I think from the US perspective, I've said it before on stream, but from an outsider, right? From an outsider perspective, right? I don't think that in my lifetime, which is very short, that I don't think I've ever seen the US more divided. I think that actually the outcome of the elections is negative all around. I think that if Kamala gets in, I think that, from a Republican perspective, not a good outcome at all. For essentially a more liberal Democrat to become president, not a good outcome. And I think that if Trump gets in, from a Democrat perspective, chaos, because there was already outrage at the fact that Trump got in once, and now the fact that Trump has been re-elected is just another, basically just like lighting the fuse. And so I think it's a really kind of like divided nation. It's also a very close election, which also doesn't help when it comes to things like the emotion and the build-up. So I think it's it's an interesting time anyway from like an outsider perspective. And I kind of wish you guys had better candidates. Ideally. But it is what it is. All right. Thank you so much for joining me. And I'm going to keep up the bull posting. Like I said, just be careful with BTC around this high. Don't start getting like crazy on BTC when we're trading around all-time highs. There will be a huge amount of volatility. I think the alts look in a really good position. I think overall there's a ton of alts that still have really attractive, nice setups. And I think there's a ton of value that you can still extract from the market there. I also think that one of the things, and just to clarify for everybody, we've spoken over the last 6 months or so, maybe the last 3 months once we've had the BTC range more established. And one of the things that I've always said is like you just buy the breakout on BTC. And MicroStrategy is a very good reason for doing so, because MicroStrategy is up 45%, 50% from the range breakout. The range breakout was 3 weeks ago. So the value of actually buying a clear range breakout on the higher time frame is obvious, because MicroStrategy has shown you the way. Now, what that means, and the reason that I'm mentioning it, is because a lot of people will feel doom and gloom about missing out on the price action so far. Now, especially if they're involved in the alt side of things, because BTC has been very strong, alts have been meh. And so, I just want to say to people that I think there is a huge amount of opportunity on the table, and don't let a negative mindset affect you from missing things previously. If you've missed BTC, so fucking what? Right? The people who miss BTC, right? You don't worry about MicroStrategy. You don't worry about the other markets you missed, right? Don't put all of your focus and kind of like gloom on missing BTC and missing the BTC trade, Right? There's a ton of stuff out there. I think there's a ton of stuff out there with really attractive higher time frame setups. I don't think we've had anything close to what we would define as an alt season yet. I think there's been a few isolated markets that have done extremely well, POPCAT being one of those. But this market sits at the point of a huge opportunity. And remember, BTC is not even clear of that region yet. It's not done that breakout yet. So when we actually get that, we should hopefully have 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks until the end of the year as really good, positive, uptrending weeks. Okay? So, like I said, just get rid of any like negative feelings, right, about the market, because this represents opportunity. All right. Have a wonderful rest of the evening, and I'll catch you guys Wednesday. Yeah, I think Wednesday. I'm going to stream Wednesday. Might do some more like meme stuff on Wednesday.